My name is Emily Johnson. I'm 26 years old. I work as a preschool teacher. A year ago, I married my husband, Jack. On this day, we were all gathered for a celebration in honor of the birth of my older sister, Sophie's, baby. Sophie had the baby out of wedlock. It was our parents' first grandchild, so they were absolutely smitten the whole time. They just wanted to show off or something, throwing this big family celebration. Jack looked at Sophie's baby and said with a grin, "Does becoming a dad make you more responsible?" "I dunno, why don't you ask yourself? After all, you're the dad of your lover's baby." I shot back. Jack was visibly shaken. "What are you talking about? That's just a joke, right?" Then Jack's father, George, was furious. "I didn't raise my son to be like that. Man up and take responsibility," he shouted, landing a punch. Amidst our family's watchful eyes, things were turning chaotic. "You've always been a handful, but I never imagined you'd get into this kind of mess with Emily's sister, Sophie. I'm utterly disappointed." George looked more dismayed than angry now. "I always told you to keep your dalliances in check, and now you end up being the father of Emily's sister's child." Sigh. "It's fine, right? It's a boy, he can take over the family business." Jack was defiant. "George runs a company. And Jack works there. Despite only having a high school education, Jack holds a position there simply because he's the boss's son. But I've heard that he takes advantage of his status, behaving however he pleases. He's known for being late or leaving early, and even taking sudden days off, honestly a burden to the other employees. They never counted on Jack from the start. They just work around him like he's not there." The employees, frustrated, had resigned themselves to this. George knew it too, but he just couldn't bring himself to cut ties with his only son, Jack. "We haven't had kids yet, so this works out, doesn't it?" "What? We've only been married a year. Are you really treating this like infertility? That's crazy. Emily, you knew about your husband and sister. Why didn't you say something? You could have talked to me. Weren't you struggling, holding this in? I'm asking this assuming my son is entirely at fault. Jack and Sophie have been involved since before we got married. I thought it was just a fling, so I left it alone. But I never expected Sophie to get pregnant with Jack's baby." "When did you find out about Sophie's pregnancy?" "I heard it from our mom. I was mostly curious about who the father was. When I heard she was having the baby unmarried, I just knew it was Jack's. If you had told us then, maybe we could have done something. I figured Sophie was set on keeping the baby. I know her. She's my sister, and she's always been headstrong." "Jack, what were you thinking about Sophie's pregnancy?" "Sophie didn't tell me about the pregnancy. When I found out, she was already 8 months along, too late for an abortion. But I was actually happy. My own child was coming." "What was Sophie thinking? I want to know now." Jack showed no remorse. In fact, he seemed happy to have a child. Both Jack and Sophie. What was she thinking, getting involved with her sister's husband and wanting to have his baby? And according to Jack, she kept it a secret until she was 8 months pregnant. Why did she want to have the baby so badly? "Why not? I got pregnant, so I thought I might as well have the baby. I'm 28, seemed like good timing. All my friends were having babies, so it felt right. Even if it wasn't Jack's child, I think I would have had it anyway." Sophie's casual attitude towards having a child was incredibly irresponsible. "Jack was happy too, and at least I don't have to worry about money, right? That's one reason I wasn't worried about being a single mom." "Why did you choose Jack, though? It was intentional, wasn't it? You've always enjoyed stealing what belongs to others. You never changed. Always wanting what others have. How many of your friends' boyfriends have you seduced? Do you need every man to fall in love with you? Remember when I was 20? You even stole my boyfriend. It's unbelievable how you never learn. Now you've gone and taken my husband, too. How much more attention do you need? I've always had low self-esteem compared to my popular sister. I never felt like I was desirable. But when I was 20, I finally had a boyfriend. Everything was so new and exciting, every day felt like a dream. Yet he fell for Sophie's seduction and cheated on me. It took me 2 years to recover from that shock. Our relationship ended after just 3 months. Sophie never struggled for male attention, yet she couldn't stand me having a boyfriend and seduced him. It's laughably pathetic. She must think every man in the world should adore her. I wish she'd get over herself. After that, I didn't date anyone for 4 years. I was too afraid of being hurt again. I met Jack when I was 24. At a friend's wedding. He fell for me at first sight and kept reaching out persistently. Eventually, I decided to give life another chance and took a gamble on Jack. But Sophie hadn't changed. When Jack said he wanted to be with me seriously, I took him home to meet my family. Sophie, you were upset that I got engaged before you. And what really attracted you was that Jack's dad owned a company. You were jealous of the life I would have. So you wanted Jack at any cost, even hoping to bear his heir, right? Of course, wealth is the biggest attraction. If Jack really cared about Emily, he wouldn't have fallen for me, right? Emily was just convenient for him, like a housekeeper who cooks and takes care of things. Then why did Jack choose me? You two were meeting secretly, right? He thought I was a better choice for marriage. You're just the woman in the shadows. Me, in the shadows? I've always been in the spotlight. I was in student council in elementary, the star of the basketball team in middle school. I was smart and popular. My life has always been on easy mode. Jack just happened to choose me. You think you're winning now? Jack got bored of you long ago. You might seem attractive at first, but you're too plain and boring. That's always been your problem. It's no surprise Jack was drawn to me. Then why didn't you tell Jack about the pregnancy until you were 8 months along? You thought he wouldn't want the baby if you told him earlier, right? You were aiming to marry him by bearing his heir, weren't you? Certainly, Sophie might be considered more in the spotlight than in the shadows. Which is why she pursued a career in modeling. Even though she hasn't been very successful. In high school, Sophie worked as a reader model. And later joined a talent agency, but she didn't get any prominent jobs. True, Sophie is pretty and has a great figure. However, in the entertainment industry, there are many people like her. The only work Sophie got was bikini photo shoots. And even those weren't always fully booked, leaving her entertainment career rather unremarkable. Yet, she prides herself on being a model and refuses to see the reality of her situation. She doesn't even work part-time, just living off our parents. How long does she plan to keep insisting she's a celebrity? But as she's getting older, not really considered young anymore, I think Sophie is starting to feel the pressure. Then I brought home Jack, a man with a father who owns a company. Sophie made a drastic shift here. For her, it must have felt like a pivotal moment, a turning point that would dictate the course of her life ahead. Jack, what did you think when you found out Sophie was pregnant? Were you planning to take responsibility in some way? Since Sophie had the baby out of wedlock, were you two discussing your future together? Well, we didn't really talk about the future, but I thought the kid could be the heir to my dad's company. Seeing my own child for the first time today, I felt something. The baby looks like me, you know, the eyes and the amount of hair. But if you continued your married life with Emily, there's a chance you could have had children with her, right? Were you just planning to casually continue with both Emily and Sophie? I don't like being tied down by marriage. Emily is like a wife, and Sophie is more like a partner. I don't really care much about that stuff. I don't see the point. Hey, enough is enough. This is serious. That's where you're going wrong. You haven't changed at all. Always doing things halfway. Have you ever completed anything? You dropped out of high school, and when you said you wanted to go to vocational school, I paid for it, but you quit after 2 months. Remember when you wanted to open a shop with your friend? I supported that too, but you squandered all the money I invested and the shop fell through. You just lack determination. You think you can take over the company eventually and everything will be fine, right? I've made a lot of compromises for you, but the employees are complaining, and you have no motivation. If you become the president, the company will surely fail. I'm seriously concerned about the idea of you taking over. I won't be involved in running the company. I'll leave it all to the employees, get a chairman-like title, and delegate everything. There's this right-hand man of my dad, right? I'll use him for now. I'm aware of that much. It's often said that the second generation rarely lives up to the first, and Jack is a prime example of that. Emily, you're always blaming me and Sophie, but what about you? Didn't you marry me because I'm the son of a company president? I'm giving you a good life, aren't I? You're not in a position to complain. I didn't marry Jack just because he's the son of a wealthy man. Even though my friends joke about me being after his fortune, that's not the case at all. Living a life of luxury isn't something I'm comfortable with. I doubt I could ever fit in with that crowd. If we had children, there would be playdates and school admissions to think about, all beyond what I feel capable of handling. I grew up in an ordinary family, and suddenly stepping into a high society life feels unnatural and unattainable for me. I'm struggling quite a bit. Even though we live in a fancy condo, not everything I own or wear is branded. Our meals are pretty ordinary too. My life hasn't changed much in that regard. On the other hand, Sophie has received a lot from Jack, including luxury items and trips abroad. When they use hotels, it's not cheap motels, but top-tier rooms in the best hotels. Sophie probably saw herself as the ideal mistress, completely pampered and taken care of. I decided to marry Jack because he affirmed me. Did that really happen? You might not remember, but Jack always complimented me on my looks, my cooking, everything. It made me feel like I could live honestly and not feel inferior. That's why I married him. I've always had low self-esteem, largely because I've always been compared to Sophie. We sisters, just a year apart, did everything together. We were often compared like this. Sophie was like a French doll, and I was like a plain doll. As you can see, we're complete opposites. Sophie, with her glamorous and noticeable appearance, was always the darling of friends and relatives. In contrast, I was plain and unremarkable, lacking charm. Sophie always seemed to have the better deal in life. And yet, she had to go and seduce my husband and get pregnant. She must feel like she can't stand not being on top. Probably, she can't bear to see me happy. Why are you so fixated on Jack, Sophie? He's the last type I'd think you'd go for. Honestly, he's not your type, right? You just wanted to take him from me, didn't you? The thrill is in the chase for you, but once you have it, you lose interest. You've always had men fawning over you, never lacking male attention. You're dependent on having a man by your side, aren't you? You're probably already bored with Jack. Getting into a forbidden relationship with your sister's husband, getting pregnant, becoming an unmarried mother, a single mom, that's your idea of a charm point. Jack's paying you a hefty amount in child support, so you're set. He's already served his purpose for you, hasn't he? You're not seriously hoping to marry him, are you? Your paranoia is too much just because you're not popular. You say I stole your ex, but he was the one who approached me. He contacted me out of the blue and fell for me. I dumped him because he was clingy and creepy. If Jack really loved you, he wouldn't have fallen for me, right? That's how little he cared about you. Maybe Jack's infidelity isn't new. A man who can't cherish his wife is worthless in other areas too. That's exactly what Jack is. I've always felt like it wouldn't make a difference whether I'm there or not. But what really gets me is how cunning you are, Sophie. Remember when you plagiarized my essay and then won a prize at some competition? You never admitted that it was mine. And you'd wear my clothes without permission, return them dirty, and never even bother to clean them. You're so confident that you're more beautiful than me. So why covet my things? If I'm so beneath you, why not just ignore me? How many times have I suffered like this before? I fear that if things continue this way, I'll be forever manipulated and overshadowed by Sophie. If you knew about me and Jack, why didn't you say anything? Even after a child was involved, you didn't take any action, Emily. Does that mean you didn't really love Jack that much? Maybe you even wanted me and Jack to get together? I thought about leaving Jack, but that would just be playing right into your hands, Sophie. That's why I stubbornly refused to leave him. You wanted our marriage to fail, didn't you? You think you're superior just because you have Jack's child. But let's not forget, I'm his legal wife. Emily, Sophie, I'm truly sorry for the mess my son has caused. We need to discuss what to do next. We can't just let things continue as they are. Why are you apologizing? I created an heir, didn't I? Dad, you always said that the company would be in trouble without an heir. Well, I've made one. Don't get cocky. You're nothing but a half-baked failure. You were just saying something about how becoming a father might make you more responsible, right? So, what does responsibility mean to you? What do you think about betraying and hurting two women? I've always cleaned up your messes, but this is about a life. A child has been born, and you have a lifelong responsibility as a parent. What are you planning to do now? Sophie doesn't want to marry me. She just wants to raise my child. I don't hate Emily, and Sophie says she's fine being an unmarried mother. So, I guess I'll just continue my married life with Emily as before. Emily, Sophie, are you okay with this? I just want the child support, that's all. Honestly, I'm torn and confused. Even if I forgive Jack and Sophie now, I'm not sure if I can continue to be his wife as before. My anger seems to be falling on deaf ears. How can there be any sympathy for a husband who had an affair with my own sister? Thankfully, I don't have children yet. Maybe it's better to leave Jack before any children are involved. Even after we started dating, Jack's womanizing ways only decreased a bit. He frequently splurged at nightclubs, using his father's credit card for payments, seemingly thinking the funds were limitless. He loved showing off and being popular among both men and women. George told me that Jack changed after he started dating me. Emily changed Jack. I can't forget George's face, teary-eyed, as he said that. But, right after Jack and I started dating, he cheated on me with Sophie and they began an affair. So, nothing really changed. George used to confide in me about Jack's behavior. He said he had no one else to talk to about it. Jack was selfish and spoiled from a young age. George now regrets having pampered him. Their family was wealthy, so Jack could buy anything he wanted. Being an only child, he hogged all the attention. That was his normal. As a teenager, his rebellious phase attracted bad company. Their mansion had a basement where Jack and his friends partied till dawn. No matter how much George scolded, Jack wouldn't stop. George was seriously worried about his future. Jack often got into fights with students from other schools. George had to apologize and sometimes settle things with money. Yet, George still loved Jack dearly. No matter how much Jack betrayed or rebelled, a parent's love for their child doesn't fade. George decided to groom Jack as his successor. He welcomed him into the company as an employee. The staff knew about Jack's bad behavior and just watched over him. But Jack's attitude was intolerable. I want to ask George, is it okay for Jack to stay like this? Maybe firing Jack would be a kind act of a parent. Having status, honor, and money means you can have a mistress or two, right? Unsuccessful men aren't attractive. Having money is a selling point, isn't it? Between a man with money and one without, which would a woman choose? Even famous CEOs and actors have kids with their mistresses. I don't see much difference. I'm furious with Jack, but I'm equally angry at Sophie's actions and mindset. I think it's tough and inconvenient for a child to grow up with only one parent. I feel like they're underestimating the impact of making a child live with just one parent due to their own convenience. What worries me is that Sophie didn't seem that keen on having a child. I always thought that Sophie and a child would be the least compatible. After all, Sophie always puts herself first. Even today, when the child should be the center of attention, Sophie is all dolled up in a dress. Because I exposed Sophie and Jack's relationship in such a setting, Sophie naturally became the center of attention. She looked ecstatic. As a preschool worker, I understand to some extent. But someone like Sophie should never become a parent. From now on, she'll have to prioritize the child, staying in the background. Everything will be child first, time, place, everything. I doubt Sophie can adjust to that. Children are unconditionally adored and loved. I'm afraid Sophie might even get jealous of her own child. She'll probably rely on Jack's child support to hire a babysitter and raise the child. If George cuts Jack off, what will be left for him? Having Jack around, treated as redundant, benefits no one. I've already made up my mind. Maybe it's time I take the initiative. I'll divorce you. We can't go back to being a normal couple. What do you and your sister think of children? Your sister had a child out of selfishness. She used the child to steal Jack from me. It's heartbreaking for the child, who is innocent. Just as your sister planned, it's caused a rift between Jack and me that can't be repaired. So, I'll divorce Jack. You two should marry and be good parents to the child. What? Divorce, coming from you, Emily? That's presumptuous. I could understand if I was the one who brought it up, but coming from you, it's way too early. You should be grateful I married someone plain like you. Who do you think I am? I can choose anyone I want. Fine by me. I prefer Sophie over you anyway. Oh, really? You and your sister are complete opposites, yet you changed your type in 2 years? Don't be stupid, Sophie was always my type. That's why, when you introduced me to Sophie, I decided to commit to her right away. Sorry for wasting your time with a marriage to someone who wasn't even my type. It was indeed only a matter of time. Did you think I hadn't noticed your numerous affairs? You said you'd cut down on your womanizing since you were single, but it was so obvious. After all your philandering, to end up in an affair with your wife's sister, you must have been really desperate. Weren't you taken seriously? You should have realized sooner that women, like those beautiful ladies at the clubs, don't prefer guys like you, Jack. They only paid attention to you because of your money, right? What? Who are you to talk? I've had girlfriends since elementary school. I've never been short of women. Money makes me attractive? That's just one of my assets. A woman who's not been popular shouldn't be giving love advice. I'm not interested in your love theories. Of course, I'd be more attracted to the glamorous Sophie than someone plain like you. Any guy would choose Sophie over you. Meeting you first was my only mistake in life. Go ahead, marry your sister without any hesitation. I wonder how long that will last, maybe 6 months. She won't be satisfied with just one man. Just don't make the child miserable. A child can't choose their parents. Who do you think I am? I'm not like the other losers. I drive a luxury car, live in a high-rise condo. That's all part of my charm, my worth. There are countless women who want to marry me. Marrying you is just a detour. I'm thankful you're giving me a divorce. So, this is fine with you, isn't it, sister? I don't quite get what your endgame or purpose was, but at the very least, you wanted to hurt me, right? Did things go as you planned? As for me, I haven't been hurt one bit. I never saw you, Emily, as an enemy. You're just overly conscious of me. Whether or not I marry Jack isn't that important to me. A father is better for the child, though. Sorry it turned out this way, taking Jack from you. I wonder how many months your next man will last. For the child's sake, don't just rush into a divorce. You're not just a woman now, you're a mother. I wish you all the best. After that, Jack and I divorced. Jack quickly remarried Sophie. But they ended up with a speedy divorce. George, hearing complaints from employees, chose to fire Jack. You're on your own now. Work from scratch in another company. Feel the harshness of society. Jack was left penniless. George must have felt like a lion throwing his child off a cliff. But it was for Jack's own good. A tough love decision. Jack started working as a temporary worker in a rural area to pay alimony to me and child support to Sophie. But he didn't last long there. He hopped from job to job, living in motels. Meanwhile, Sophie, struggling with post-pregnancy weight, was fired from her modeling agency. Overwhelmed with single parenting, she had no time for herself, becoming a shadow of her former self. I continued working at the daycare and started actively participating in social gatherings I had previously declined.